Hello traders, welcome to the Nexoel Trading Hub YouTube channel. So we're going to be looking at the weekly forecast for the coming week, and the forecast last week played out just the way we anticipated and expected, and we were able to leverage the forecast to have our trade execution within the week. And I was able to share free setup in the free Telegram community. So if you're interested in following us in the free Telegram community so that you can utilize the free setups that have been made available in the free Telegram community, and you can do well to join the free Telegram community, guys. So this is the dollar index, and this is the weekly time frame. So from the weekly time frame here, we can clearly see our point of interest, where we've been making emphasis to, and how we've seen the bullish reaction, and how we wanted to see price trade into this weekly inversion fair value gap. You must remember that this is the monthly bullish fair value gap, and within the monthly bullish fair value gap, we identify this weekly bullish fair value gap and also this weekly bullish fair value gap, which is in confluence to the consequent encroachment of the monthly bullish fair value gap. So last week I pointed the fact that here price took out the sell side liquidity and we saw bullishness up close candle week. So we expected to see further bullishness into this weekly inversion fair value gap, which is within this weekly bearish fair value gap, and we can see how price have traded into that zone. So what we have now is that price has taken out the sell side liquidity. In extension, we know price has taken out the sell side liquidity, the swing low points. Now what we can see is that price traded into the weekly inversion fair value gap and has taken out the buy side liquidity, and then we had a down close candle for this particular week that just ended. So what we'll be looking forward to is the possibility of price trading to the 25% of this candle week, and we may see bullish continuation. Let's check the daily time frame. What we can clearly see here in the daily time frame is, we have here price took out the sell side liquidity. We had this bullish movement to the upside. Price traded to the downside, took out the sell side liquidity, and we have this impulse to the upside. This is the daily inversion fair value gap we identified from the daily time frame. Price took out the sell side liquidity, this swing low point, mitigating the first weekly bullish fair value gap here, and we saw the bullishness to the upside. And I told us if we see price trade above the daily inversion fair value gap, then we should look forward to a retest and continuation into this weekly inversion fair value gap, which in confluence you can also see here in the daily time frame. We have this bearish fair value gap, and price have not really traded to the mean threshold of this weekly inversion fair value gap, neither the mean threshold of the daily bearish fair value gap. So what we have now here is, here we have the breaker. So we could see the possibility of price trading to mitigate the breaker. Price may dip a little lower, and then we have what bullish continuation to the upside. So let's check the 4-hour time frame. Here in the 4-hour time frame, how you would really want to utilize the higher time frame perspective is to look at this. Here we have the sweep of the sell side liquidity. Price took out sell side liquidity. We had this bearish movement. This is the last up close candle that took out the sell side. Price traded above that, give us this internal structure, market structure shift. Price return into the fair value gap in confluence to this breakout block, and we had this bullish movement. Finally, we have price took out this high point, giving us this market structure shift, a more higher time frame market structure shift. And now we can see in the 4-hour time frame we have this inversion fair value gap. Price return, retested, and continued bullish into our sponsorship zone. We're looking forward to see price trade into for the bullish movement to the upside. This is the draw on liquidity that I pointed out towards last week, and we can see how price have traded into that zone. So it is the weekly inversion fair value gap, which is in confluence to the daily bearish fair value gap, and here we can see we have this 4-hour bearish fair value gap. The price did not trade into the consequent encroachment of both the 4-hour and this weekly inversion fair value gap, which also we saw that price have not really traded to the consequent encroachment of also the daily bearish fair value gap. So what we can see is that price have been trading above this inversion fair value gap, and now we can see this bearishness to the downside. We can see here we have this sell side liquidity, relatively equal low points, and we can see here we have this mitigation block. Price gave us this impulse to the upside and then closed above the open price of the bearish and the close price of the bullish candle, and we can see it left here a bullish fair value gap here in the 4-hour time frame. Below this sell side liquidity, you can see that is where we have that sponsorship zone. So here we can see price have returned to the 4-hour inversion fair value gap. In confluence is where we have the breakout block we identify from the daily time frame. So what I'm looking forward to see in the dollar index is this: is the possibility of price trading to the downside to take out this relatively equal low points, and then from this sponsorship zone here, this mitigation block, which is in confluence to this 4-hour bullish fair value gap, we can look forward to the buy model and then we trade further to the upside. Or what we could see now is this: since price is taking out this sell side liquidity, mitigating this 4-hour inversion fair value gap, we could look forward to see how price would trade bullish then to this price zone, because price now may trade to this bearish order block and give us bearish movement to this sponsorship zone in order to take out this sell side liquidity, mitigating this 4-hour bullish fair value gap in confluence to this mitigation block, and then we can now look forward to the buy model to further trade to the upside. So we could see this possibility where price would trade into this bearish order block. So we have to wait to see the reaction of price at this bearish order block, or price may just continue bullish to the upside. But then it means if you're trading bullishness to the upside, you have to trail your stop loss in order to see how price reacts, because price may react and give us bearishness in order to take this sell side liquidity before we have the bullish movement to the upside. Or what we could see is the possibility of price just trading to the downside, and then price may give us the buy model to continue bullish to the upside. So this is my expectation for the DXY. Let's check the 1-hour time frame. Here in the 1-hour time frame, what we can see is this: from the 1-hour time frame, you can clearly see that here is the relatively equal low point. We have the stack of what sell side liquidity. Clearly if we want to draw this, we have what trend line liquidity. So price is taking out this sell side liquidity, reacting now at the 4-hour inversion fair value gap. And what we can see from the 1 hour, we have this more of our rejection block, and we can see how price rejected here to the upside. But then we have this inversion fair value gap, so we can see price traded into that, and now we are having this reaction to the downside. So that is why I said we could see the possibility that price may just trade to the downside. Let me point that out to us. Price may just continue bearish to the downside here to take out this sell side liquidity, and then from this sponsorship zone we can begin to look forward to see the buy model that price would create, so that we go bullish to the upside. I mean, from the 1 hour, you have to pay attention to how price would respect this 1 hour inversion fair value gap. But if price violates that, so clearly what we'll be looking forward to is we could see price trade above this, price return here, and then we want to see how price trade into this price zone, which is the 4 hour bearish order block. So price may decide to continue bullish to the upside, or we could see price react here and give us bearish movement to the downside. And when price takes out the sell side liquidity, we have price create the buy model to continue bullish to the upside. So except price then violates this zone, then we may see strong bearish continuation to the downside. So this is what I have to show us, guys, in the dollar index. Let's check out the EURUsd pair, guys. This is EURUsd, and this is a weekly time frame. So last week clearly I pointed out to the fact that I want to see further bearish movements into this weekly inversion fair value gap, and we could see what bullish reaction, and clearly we can see the delivery happen just the way we forecasted. So here we have this bullish fair value gap here in the weekly time frame, and within the bullish fair value gap we have the weekly inversion fair value gap, and also this other weekly inversion fair value gap, which is in confluence to the mean threshold of this weekly bullish fair value gap. So clearly we can see here price mitigated this first weekly inversion fair value gap and bullish movement to the upside. We saw how price mitigated the monthly bearish fair value gap. Within the monthly bearish fair value gap, we have the weekly bearish fair value gap. Taking out buy side liquidity, price traded to the downside. Here we had this weekly candle took out the buy side and we had a down close week. So, price here took out buy side, price took out sell side. So I expected us to see more bearishness to the downside since we identified that we have drawn liquidity, the weekly bullish fair value gap, and within that we have this first weekly inversion fair value gap, and we can see price traded to that. So buy side liquidity taken here, sell side liquidity taken, and volume did not close below this previous weekly candle. So let's check the daily time frame to look at the possibility we are to expect for the coming week. So yet in the daily time frame, what we can see is we have this bullish movement, price took out the buy side liquidity, and we have the bearishness. So basically here we have a breakout block, and so we can see the possibility of price trade into the breakout block, and we could look forward to the sell model that price will give us when price return into this breakout block zone, and then we can continue bearish to the downside, since we can see here that price have not really mitigated or traded into the mean threshold of the weekly bullish fair value gap. And you can also see here we have this daily bullish fair value gap, which also we can see that the second inversion fair value gap is within this daily bullish fair value gap. And this second inversion fair value gap is in confluence to the consequent encroachment level of the weekly bullish fair value gap. So let's check the 4-hour time frame. What we can see from the 4-hour time frame is price gave us this stack of trend line liquidity. And here we have, this is the buy movement before the sell movement that further sponsored bearishness that took out this low point. So we may see price trade bullish into the zone, and then we have what? Bearish continuation to the downside. So price would seek to take out a trend line liquidity, and then we would have the possibility of having a bearish movement to the downside. So from the 4-hour time frame, we could see how price trades further into the zone, because we can see we also have this bearish fair value gap, and then we can have bearish continuation to the downside. Let's check the 1-hour time frame. So here in the 1-hour time frame, what we can see is that price mitigated the weekly inversion fair value gap, and what we can see, price traded to the upside into this bearish order block. Here we have the break of structure, price seek this buy side liquidity, so reacting at the bearish order block. This is the 4-hour zone. So from the 1-hour time frame here, we could see price may give us the bearish model. We could see the possibility of having bearish movements to the downside. So want to trade to the downside here, because we could see price seek the sell side liquidity into this fair value gap zone we have here. Let's check that from the 4-hour time frame. So from the 4-hour time frame, we can see that as this rejection block zone. So we can trade bearish to the downside into this rejection block zone based on the bearish order block we identify from the 1-hour time frame, which in the 4-hour time frame we can see that here we have this rejection block zone. That is where price is reacting at. So based on the bearish order block we're seeing from the 1 hour, we could see the possibility of bearish movements to trade into the rejection block zone here. So we have to wait to see the reaction of price here, because price now may print bullish reason to trade to the upside into this 4-hour zone before we have bearish continuation to the downside. So this is what I have to show us, guys, in the EURUsd. Let's check out the GBPUSD pair. This is GBPUSD. So I'm really sorry, the dogs may be backing, so we may have interference here. Now this is GBPUSD, and this is the weekly time frame. What we can see is how price has been reacting at this key level, which clearly we framed that from the daily time frame. The daily time frame gave us a clear picture to that. So we can see we're having this movement from the weekly time frame that seems to be like a consolidated movement. Though we have price here took out buy side liquidity, traded to the downside. Now price took out sell side liquidity, but price did not take out the buy side. So we can see EURUsd traded into its bullish fair value gap and mitigated its first inversion fair value gap, but we can see that GBPUSD has not done that. So we could see the possibility that price may continue bearish to take out this sell side liquidity into the weekly bullish fair value gap in confluence to this inversion fair value gap we have here. Let's check that from the daily time frame. So here in the daily time frame, what we can see from the daily, so this is that key level, because we have this push, price traded to the downside, price went above, took out buy side liquidity before sponsoring the bearish movement. So it's more of a strong high point. When you change that to the line graph, you can clearly see that price seeked buy side and bearishness to the downside. So what we can now see is how price here have been trading here, not really giving impulse clearly from a higher time frame, the weekly, the daily. So we can see the movement here, leaving this low, not yet swept by price movement by the institutions. So what we can see within the weekly bullish fair value gap, we have this daily bullish fair value gap. And it is within the daily bullish fair value gap we have here that we have this weekly inversion fair value gap. So this is the framework in which I'm expecting to see the possibility that price may trade into this zone before we have the possibility of bullish continuation to the upside in the GBPUSD pair. If we see that the dollar index continues bullish, then definitely we'll be looking at selling the GBP and the EURUsd. This is just a very quick forecast I'm giving us to guide us for the coming week. Let's check the 4-hour time frame. So here in the 4-hour time frame, what we can clearly see from the 4-hour is this: GBP traded into its bearish fair value gap. EURUsd have not traded into its bearish fair value gap. We had this impulse on Thursday, price delivery back into the bearish fair value gap here in GBPUSD. So what we can see, we have this low points, the sell side liquidity, we have the sell side liquidity. Price has taken out all the buy side liquidity resting here, mitigating the bearish fair value gap here in the 4-hour time frame. So in GBPUSD, this is a rough delivery in the 4-hour time frame, but then we could see more rough price movements, and we could now see price continue bearish. So price may be trading within this zone here, giving us more of a choppy price delivery before we have the possibility of price giving us impulse to the downside. If we want to see strong bullish continuation, then we would have to wait to see price takes out this high point. Then let's check the 1-hour time frame. So here in the 1-hour time frame, what we can see is since price reacted at the 4-hour bearish order block, and now we can see the movement here, price traded this choppy movement. So what we have this bullish fair value gap here, we have this sell side liquidity here. So price may in GBPUSD keep giving some silly movements, and possibly we see price trade to this zones, another give another reaction before we could see price continue bearish to the downside. So this is what I'm looking for to see, this possibility in GBPUSD. So let's check out the USDJPY pair, guys. This is USDJPY. So, I pointed the fact towards last week that I wanted to see more bullishness into this rejection block. And from the rejection block, we could see bearish reaction for the possibility of further bullish movement this coming week. So what we can see is that price has traded into that rejection block zone, and we saw this bearish movement to the downside. We identify how price mitigated this bullish fair value gap, swept the sell side liquidity, and we expected bullishness. So let's check the daily time frame. So here in the daily time frame, what we can see, I emphasize the possibility of seeing bearish movement when price comes into this rejection block zone in the daily time frame. So the weekly rejection block zone refined into this daily time frame, which from the 4-hour we identify we had a bearish order block there. We expected to see how price would take out this buy side liquidity, and clearly we can see that happened. So what we can see here is we had this down close candle, the bullish order block here, price traded back into that, mitigated that, taking out the sell side liquidity, and we have bullishness that's ran through this buy side liquidity. So here we have this breaker because this sponsored the bearish movement that took out this sell side liquidity before we have this bullish movement to the upside. So here we have this sell side liquidity, the breaker here. Below that we have this fair value gap. So we may see price trade into this zone, and then we'll be looking forward to see how we're going to frame bullish movement to the upside if that gives us the bullish model to continue bullish further to the upside to see how price takes out this buy side and this buy side liquidity. Let's check the 4-hour time frame. Here in the 4-hour time frame, what we can see is, I told us, so you can see here we have the bearish order block. We have the rejection level here. Price traded into the rejection level, giving us this bearishness. So we can see sell side liquidity resting here. We have this fair value gap. Here is our zone we identify from the daily time frame, the breakout zone. So we want to see how price trades into this level. So from this level, we begin to look forward to the bullish model, and then we continue bullish to the upside. So this is what I have to show us in USDJPY. This is just a very quick focus. Let's check out the gold pair, guys. This is the weekly time frame in gold. So, price traded into our bullish fair value gap. We saw the bullishness. Price created this bullish fair value gap. We expected the possibility of price possibly trading into that, and we continue bullish. But from the daily time frame, we saw reason to expect to see bullishness here, which further in the 4-hour time frame, we established more solid reason to expect that price may just give us bullishness from this candle delivery. And clearly we can see that is the movement we have here. So we still have this bullish fair value gap as a valid zone where we could see price trade into, and then we have bullish continuation. But what we can see here is that volume have closed above. You must understand what I do with the forecast is to give you the psychology to the markets, to price delivery. So what we can see here is that volume here closed above this high. So we may not really see price trade back into this weekly bullish fair value gap. Mark the word, I said may. And there exists the possibility that price may now trade back into it. Are we together? But what we can see here is that volume here have traded above this high point. So we may see bullish continuation. Now it is from this perspective we now start going to the lower time frame. So let's check the daily time frame. So here in the daily time frame, what we can see, from last 2 weeks, price left this fair value gap, left this breakout unmitigated. And from the daily, we also have the fair value gap here. We can see price had never traded into that. So last week then, I pointed out the fact that we had this bullish fair value gap, and we could see the bullishness from there, which we saw the rally zone in the 4-hour time frame, and clearly that was what happened. So what we can now see again is we have the bullish continuation to the upside. So from the daily time frame, we can see we have this daily bullish fair value gap. So we could see price trade into the daily bullish fair value gap, and then we have bullish continuation to the upside. So this is what we could see in gold. And basically now this is sell side liquidity, meaning if price is trying to trade more lower to the downside, then it would want to take out the sell side and then mitigate this zone, and we have bullish continuation. But that gold is strongly bullish, so we have to understand and look at lower perspective and be framing the possibility of bullish continuation when we see the buy models being formed. Let's check the 4-hour time frame. So here in the 4-hour time frame, what we can see now, you see this is the rally, the base, the rally. Price return into the daily bullish fair value gap zone, mitigated this base level. You can see that giving us a single candle order block, which I pointed out to us last week, and we can see bullishness to the upside. Price took out the sell side liquidity here. So what we can see from the 4-hour is the reaction of price within this bullish fair value gap. So if we have the possibility that price keeps trading above this, then we know that price is going to continue bullish. So the expectation is to see how price return to the downside here. If price gives us this bearishness and price respects this fair value gap zone, then we want to continue bullish to the upside, because this is it. Price gave us this impulse here, and then what we can see, we have this pullback. Price traded again further to the upside, so price will seek the sell side. If price respects this fair value gap, then we're going to continue bullish, except when we see that price trades and volume closed below this fair value gap, then we should expect the possibility of price further dropping to the downside into this zone, the sell movement we have here before the bullish movement. And if price gives us the bullish model, then we'll look forward to continue bullish to the upside. So here in the 1 hour time frame, what you can see is this. So you can see we have impulse, we had this retracement, price gave this impulse, price gave us this pullback, liquidity resting here, sell side liquidity. So you can see here we have that sell movements here before the bullish movements. So that is why I called our attention from the 4 hour time frame that let's look to the possibility of how price trades into the zone if we're going to continue bullish. If price respects this and gives us bullish model, then we continue bullish to the upside, because price would take out what the sell side liquidity, except we see that price trades to the downside and then violate the fair value gap we identified from the 4 hour time frame, violating also this zone, then we know that we would look to the possibility of framing our bearishness to the downside into where we have what the sell movement before the bullish movement. Then from this zone, we begin to look forward to see how price would give us a buy model to the upside. So this is what I have to show us for the coming week. Cheers, guys, and God bless you all.